Welcome to the Second Bite podcast, where we talk with top entrepreneurs and CEOs about creating valuable companies through creative transactions. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome to this episode of the Second Bite podcast. I have with me the team that built Pivot CMO and just recently did a transaction, which I'm proud to have a trophy for right here with the people at Conspiracy Theory, Shawn Sheikh and Fred Chiang. Gentlemen, super happy that you guys could be with me today.
Thanks for having us, Todd.
Yeah. Hey, and so you guys we just closed this transaction within the last couple of weeks. So there's a bunch of stuff that I want to unpack. Right before we start, I want to thank our sponsor, the people at TeamShares. TeamShares is a really neat company, private equity group, if you will, in New York City. They focus on acquiring businesses and then gradually, over a 7 to 10 year period of time, getting the equity that they buy into the hands of the employees of a company. So they're a really interesting, neat group. Anyone that has a company that's not so much in the digital space, that wants to do a transaction, they were a great group to do a deal with. We were fortunate enough to sell them a company in December. Teamshares.com out of New York City is a great group, and they're our sponsor, so we thank them for that. Now, Shawn and Fred, let's talk about Pivot CMO. So Pivot is in what people consider the paid social space. Fred, how would you describe Pivot as a company, a service provider, and who were you providing those services to most often?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we started off and we focused on paid social. That's not necessarily, all we do. In general, I think we're, a marketing partner for a lot of our clients. For the most part, we're full service. So besides paid social, we also, we do Google ads. We help our clients with SEO and organic. And we also have partners to help with, like creative production and email and other capabilities. So in general, we're the partners to help our clients grow and kind of be a part of their marketing team, however we can fit into it. And then in terms of the types of partners that we work with, it's a pretty wide spectrum, but I would say most of our clients are e-commerce. So we focus a lot on, clients on Shopify who are trying to just drive revenue and return on ad spend. So for the most part, we focus on performance, right? Through the use of paid media and other channels, we're driving direct revenue, attributable revenue for our clients, and driving, profit for them. And then, varying sizes, we work with clients who are just starting out on Facebook ads or Google ads, spending, $10,000 a month, and we have clients spending millions of dollars a month. So we are capable of kind of working, with clients of different sizes and at different stages.
And Fred, you guys, Shawn, you guys had success almost right away because you're a relatively young company. Can you talk about when you founded the company and in the transaction that you recently did, for somebody having as much success as you guys have, beyond the economics, which is always important, why do a transaction?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we got, I'd say the company kind of got started on accident. Fred and I were working on a couple different projects. We were consulting, and it's kind of one of those things where we were consulting for like 2 or 3 different companies, and then it was totally going to be a side thing, and we were just helping some of our friends out. And then 2 or 3 clients turned into 6, and then 10, and then 15, and then all of a sudden we were like, hey, we should probably hire some people to help out because we were basically killing ourselves trying to make sure we fulfill all the client needs. So I'd say we had a good system pretty early on, and the work ended up being pretty good. So people were happy. The company grew pretty quickly from there. I mean, we've been around for about 3.5, 4 years now, and we really had no intention of doing a transaction or anything like that. I think the thing was we got to a certain level and we've been continuing to grow, but understanding bringing on a partner that'll kind of help us go to the next level, create opportunities for a lot of the employees at the company who we absolutely love, And then there were some gaps that we could either build or we could partner up with another agency to fill. So, for example, like on the creative side, we love having a good creative partner, and we're always looking for a great creative agency to partner with. In the transaction we just did, now we have like a really amazing creative partner. On the web development side, we a lot of our clients ask us for intros to agencies, and we have a list of some that we really like, but having like an actual dedicated partner where we can push business to, and business can kind of come to us, and then there are opportunities for everybody. Just helps a lot, and kind of helps take the business and the brand and the company to the next level. There are also obviously like benefits to being a part of something bigger, like on the employee side of things, and just assistance on the finance side of things, like on everything admin. There are just things that the people that we're partnering with have gone through already, and it makes it a lot easier for us. It doesn't need to be as hard as it would be if we were going at it alone. So, um, inevitably, that's a big reason why we decided to do it, and obviously, great guidance from you along the way, so that was helpful.
And
Yeah,
and when you did the transaction with conspiracy theory, so now that you're a part of that, my two-part question is this: conspiracy theory is roughly how big? How many people are there now, and roughly maybe on revenues? And there were multiple interested parties in the business, right? In acquisition of the business, and you had 3 or 4 LOIs. What caused the decision, the ultimate choice to select conspiracy theory as your partner?
yeah. I don't know how much I can speak to the conspiracy theory revenue. I don't know how public that is, but I mean, in terms of like total company size, I mean, there's hundreds of people across the portfolio companies. I think conspiracy theory, like the actual like managing entity or managing team or whatever you want to call it, is, I don't know the exact count. I think it's like maybe 8 to 12 people across different functions. Obviously, finance, management, PR, recruiting. So recruiting has like is a big thing that we liked. And to your point, we had offers. We actually had offers with some economics that were better, but at the end of the day, we wanted to find the right partner for us, the right partner for our team. We have this like move fast, very like techy, I guess, kind of vibe and culture at our company, and some of the LOIs we had were for companies where it just wasn't going to be a good fit culture wise. We knew that we were going to get bogged down. We had a feeling for some of them that they would just slow us down, and we wouldn't get the kind of growth that we want to like really make it make sense. And then just like providing resources that we want and that our staff wants as well. Um, there's this good culture at conspiracy theory that we'd actually be building something bigger together, and that's the point of doing this, because we still own part of the company, and we want to see it do really well. And aside from economics, like we do want it to do just well because it's something that we built. Our names are on it, obviously. So yeah, they ended up being the right partner for sure.
Yeah, but people always talk about culture, right? The culture's right. So you had a few interested parties, and Shawn started to touch on it. How do you kind of put your finger on the culture? It's very subjective. How do you know that you guys have the right fit?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely is sub- subjective. It's not, like we can't exactly define all the points of the culture, but I mean, I think intentions of the partner matter a lot, right? Based on the fact that, we're continuing to stay, we're continuing to grow the business. So what the partner wants to do matters a lot in the kind of decision making process. I mean, yeah, we had offers and we've talked to, people who kind of just want to like buy a bunch of agencies, put them together and sell them, which, from an economical standpoint, that can make sense, but that's not what we want to do, right? We want to continue to grow the team, grow the business, and we wanted to find a partner who can work well with our team. So yeah, that's why I think, we ended up with conspiracy theory. I think they weren't interested in buying, multiple buying multiple agencies that would kind of do the same thing. So we wanted to grow kind of our capabilities and resource sets. And then, yeah, in the culture piece, I think we have built a very specific culture with just the team that we built. Like Shawn said, we're both from a very tech kind of Bay Area background. So, we want to have the vibe of like, a lot of cooperation, a lot of collaboration between the team, and just very transparent and openness between the team. So I think having a partner who fit that kind of mindset as well made a lot of sense. Which is why, what the partner wants to do matter a lot.
And you guys really do have a great culture to the business. Fred, Shawn, when we got introduced several months ago, right? I think it was Dan that introduced us, right?
I think so. Dan from Crocs.
Yes. What do you think as you kind of went into the process? It's the first time, selling a business that you have founded. What surprised you most about the process?
I mean, I think the thing is just like what it takes to get a deal done is interesting. I also think, and this is by no means me trying to make you feel good or anything, Todd, but I think having the right broker is important. Having the right team is really important. Like even the legal that we used ended up being amazing. The accounting person that we used to kind of help with all the financials was amazing. So, it made a really big difference. Not with conspiracy theory, but when we were talking with some of the other LOIs that came in during the process, it's when you don't have the right team, it just doesn't feel right. And when you don't have the right kind of fit and you don't work together well, it just doesn't feel right. So yeah, I think I was surprised at how good of a team we put together at such short notice. That was really good. I think I was kind of surprised at kind of some of the deal structures that we saw. So, the structure we got, we're happy with, obviously, but just some different ways people wanted to accomplish the same thing was kind of interesting. It wasn't just the like, here's a number and go at it. Like people had very different ways that they wanted to integrate us as well. Like some wanted us to stand alone, some wanted to like absorb us and kind of um, like pull Fred and I into like different departments and stuff like that. And we didn't want to do that, right? We wanted to kind of just keep the business going as is, grow it, kind of get the support that we need, and that's ultimately where we ended up. But it's pretty crazy, like how many different ways you can go about this, how many different plans people kind of have for you as you're going through this process. So
It's one of the things I tell people all the time is that as you go through this process, you get a tremendous amount of clarity. Right? Like if I would have said to you, hey, would you guys be willing to be absorbed into another company? It's hard to answer that unless I can tell you, here's the other company, here's the quality of people, here's their clients, here's all those things, right? So actually having economics line up with people, line up with go-to-market strategy, I think is what's required to make decisions like that. Would you agree with that, Fred?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I think we had a pretty good idea of what we were looking for, but even then, I think talking to the different groups, it's just not something we expected to hear or like an offer we expected to receive. But I think staying focused on what we were trying to achieve from the beginning helped a lot in terms of turning away deals that didn't make sense or not being distracted by partners that weren't right for us. So I think going into it, we wanted to find a partner who could help us grow, and we weren't, particularly interested in, being absorbed or just not being able to continue growing.
Yeah, and if we come back to the economics for a second, there's really kind of three main levers, and I think we saw this to different degrees. There's cash at close, right? So if somebody offers you $1 million for your business, if the headline number or the value for your business is $1 million, it is never somebody saying, here's a check for $1 million, right? The three levers in there typically are there's a percentage of cash that you get at closing. There's an earnout over a year or two or three. And then there's equity in the combined company. Your deal had all three of those, but there were other deals that you had that only had two of those components or had a lot less of one and a lot more of the other. Was there anything surprising about that, or would you stick with your earlier comment, Shawn, that you were just surprised at the variety that those three levers showed up in?
No, I mean, I think you did pretty good job of preparing us when we're going into it and what to expect. I mean, there were some surprising aspects of like the percentage of this or that or one or the other. So I think that we were a little bit surprised there, but I mean, for the most part, it made a lot of sense to us. I think the intentions of why the deals were structured a certain way are also really important. So when you get an offer, it's like, okay, well, why do you want us to have less or more equity, or why do
Right.
you want less or more earnout, and whatever the case is. And we always intended to stick around. So the equity does matter to us a lot. Like we want to see this through. So yeah, the intentions are really important. I think not only that, the intentions of what they're going to do with the business are really important. And kind of also what our day to day is going to look like, right? Like the last thing that we wanted was for someone to come in and then like we have to have an extra set of like 2 or 3 meetings with that team a day, right? It becomes really disruptive. So the intentions from all aspects from a deal perspective are were super important to us. And to Fred's point, um, we try to be pretty disciplined, right? We try not to look at shiny things. We try to make sure like fit is always really, really important in everything that you do.
Yeah. And so, Fred, David Schwinger was our lawyer in this case. And David's terrific. I've worked with David before. Was there anything particularly surprising about the process of going through legal and through deal documents and the negotiation between lawyers and all the rest that you found to be noteworthy or surprising?
I mean, I think like Shawn said, you and David did a really good job of preparing us for that. Obviously, it's not something we've, gone through. So everything was kind of new in that respect. But no, I don't think any of it was particularly surprising. I think, just the fact that it did take up a decent amount of time, right? Was probably the most surprising thing. Like we wanted to focus on continuing to grow and manage the team and the organization as a priority over, kind of read through random legal docs. But no, I think, you and David did a good job of walking us through that. And, I know we left a lot of it to you guys as well.
And this might be a little bit of a big question, Shawn, but there was a couple times when we were negotiating important terms in the legal documents that people referenced and went back to the LOI, right? It said this or it didn't say this in the LOI. Can you just talk about if that surprised you at all, and in hindsight, how important getting certain things in the LOI are?
Yeah, I mean, it did surprise me in the sense that, you know, what I've heard from some people is the LOI is important, but it's a placeholder, and from others, you hear like the LOI is like kind of your Bible. Like these are things that we agreed on. Let's not go back on it, type of a thing. In this case, it was very much the latter. People really stuck to their word, and that was really good. And the LOI was like more meaningful to us than I thought it was going to be, in the sense that, and I respect conspiracy theory for this. They said, look, if we're sending you an LOI, we intend to close, right? Like this, we're going to do due diligence. Obviously, if everything looks good, which it ended up looking good, we're closing this deal. And I think David, and we love David, our attorney, did a really good job of like negotiating it, and then also just making sure that things that we really didn't even think about were in there, right? Like what happens in the event of certain situations, just like how does everything work, like is employee
But
continuity, things like that.
those are weird ones too, Shawn, right? It's like, what happens if you quit? What happens if you get fired? You're talking about things that nobody anticipates is going to happen, but the lawyers love to spend lots of time on it, and hopefully it never becomes important.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's the nice part that they can do that because we don't have any intention of going anywhere. So we don't think to like structure those things into the deal, and we don't think to ask for those things because in our mind it doesn't matter. And the same thing for the acquiring company in their mind. Look, it doesn't matter because you know, general like just from how we're going to be doing things post close, nothing's going to change. But it's good for the to have the attorneys to have that like hard conversation, because also like look, we have a relationship with conspiracy theory post close, and we want a good one. Like we want to work together really nicely, and we don't want emotions kind of flying around. So David did a really good job of shielding us from all of that. I mean, he would just get on the phone with their team. They would have the discussions that they need to have, and really all the reports that we got back were all flowers and roses and all that. Like it it was actually really nice. And I remember Justin and I, like, maybe a week before close, Justin's the
Justin's
CFO.
the CFO of the buyer.
Yeah, for conspiracy theory, and he was like, man, like, your team is really good. Like, they're really aggressive. I was like, really?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, like, you're really pushing them really hard. I was like, no, I really haven't. I really haven't heard much from them. He goes, oh, okay, well, they're really good. Well, I'm glad that you're not the one pushing them to get us to do all this stuff, because we're gonna have to work together after this. I was like, oh no, it's very peaceful from me and Fred.
Yeah, I did hear that.
So, and he goes, okay, like that's good to hear. And it's just funny, the things that happen in the background when you're doing a deal that you don't even know about, but are ideally working out for the better of everybody. So.
I'm glad you raised that point, because I tell people all the time, and I've got a guy right now we're getting an LOI in on, and I asked him, do you have a good lawyer? He's like, yeah. I said, does a lawyer do M&A? And he said, she does. I think she mostly does business law, but she has done deals. And that's not the lawyer you want, right? You want a lawyer, as you guys experience now, having been through it, that knows the things that you should get, the things that you should be asking for, and the things that you shouldn't accept, right? And I think it also, Fred, is a good point. Shawn just said, in the LOI, they said, if everything looks good, right, then we're going to close on this deal. And what they mean 100% of the time is your financials. Because you take a company that's less than 10 million, maybe less than 15 million in revenue, and very seldom are their financials completely GAAP based, generally accepted accounting principles, and they're almost never accrued for properly. But we use the good folks at Cohen here in Rockville.
We didn't actually. We used Kristen.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So Kristen, and so, geez, that's two things I missed on. Kristen was great, right? And she had the numbers accrued for properly and GAAP compliant. Had the numbers nailed down, because, as you said, we're going to get to the point where now we have to stand on these numbers. And if they're off, the deal kind of falls apart, right? And so having reliable financials was critical. Anything you would add to that, Fred?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we didn't do that much in terms of the financials. We left that most of that to Kristen. Working with her was great. I mean, she's been working with us for, I think, a couple of years now, if not longer. And we're bringing her on after working with conspiracy theory as well, to kind of manage more. So, we're, like Shawn said, we're fortunate to have a good team, and we didn't have to worry about most of that ourselves.
Usually, after when we have an episode, guys have done their transaction a few months ago, and so your reaction to this question might be a little bit different. But do you anticipate anything that will be significantly different, or is there something you're most worried about, Fred, that will change, that you'll have to adjust to?
Not really. I mean, I think we picked the right partner in that regard, and I think we were very clear with them, through the transaction that a lot of things we want to keep running as we have been, right? So I mean, it's been I think literally a couple of weeks so far. So far the transition has been as anticipated. They've been really good in terms of helping us as we need it and giving us the resources as we need it, rather than kind of telling us how we should do things. Like operationally, we haven't changed a thing effectively. Our team structure is exactly the same. The way we work with clients is exactly the same. But we just have resources to reach out to, right? So now clients who are looking for specific creative production, we're pushing over to Unfold, or specific dev requests, we're pushing over to Mondo within the network. It's been really great so far. I don't anticipate any issues, and I think that is the best way for us to continue growing, is doing the things we're good at, and then using the network for help beyond what we're capable of.
And Shawn, one thing I hear from CEOs often is, I wouldn't be a good employee. I don't want to work for anybody. How do you react to that, and do you worry about that in after now doing this transaction with conspiracy theory?
I mean, I think it's always something to worry about. Like, I don't, we understand that like we're bringing on partners here, and the keyword is like partners. Like, sure, like on a paperwork perspective, Fred and I technically have a boss now, but it's never felt that way, and the dialogue's been very open. The dialogue's been very good, and like if we ask for help with something, we get it, and if they ask us for help with something, they get it as well, and it's been very like just good. It hasn't felt that way at all, and it's not something that I worry about going forward. Just given all the interaction, I mean, we've been working on this for a couple months now, and we've had the good, the bad, the ugly with like the deal aspects, and then obviously post we're having a lot of conversations about how do we do right by our employees. Like, I'll give you a good example. We had this conversation yesterday about you know some things that we were doing for our employees that aren't necessarily offered at like or aren't necessarily the way that conspiracy theory does it, but they want to like honor and grandfather everyone in and into the things that we've decided, and that's important, right? Like that wasn't very I didn't even that was an easy dialogue, and everyone still gets taken care of, and we get the staff gets the things that they want, and it wasn't even a discussion, it was just easy. So that's why I don't worry. We're just good partners at the end of the day. I think if you don't take the time to pick the right partner, it's not going to work out well. Like
Yeah.
there are some people that gave us LOIs that I'm like, I would have worried if that makes sense. But that's ultimately why we went this way.
Yeah, and I think, if there's enough effort put into the process on my end to produce multiple LOIs, then you have the luxury of picking the one that you know is the best combination of economics and opportunity going forward. And, you know, with the combination of the right strategic fit and David having done a great job on the legal side, I don't worry about you guys getting all of the earnout and all the equity that you're entitled to. And in fact, almost all of these transactions over my shoulder have a back end to them, have a second bite to them, hence the name of the podcast. And if you're fortunate enough to have multiple offers for your business, then you have the luxury of picking the one that is the right fit for you, and I think produces the kind of results where you can say no to LOIs that you're just not forced into taking something that doesn't fit right. So I'm going to ask each of you this, and Fred, I'm going to ask you first, so Shawn can think about it. For somebody that's listening in or going to go down the road of doing a transaction, what advice would you give them in terms of preparation and how to think about the transaction so that perhaps they get a similar result to what you guys have?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think in the beginning, it's just important to have an understanding of what you're looking for, right? I mean, going through the process, we got, like you said, a lot of different types of offers, a lot of different types of partners. And if we didn't have a good idea of what we were looking for, we might have just gone with the best economic offer, or we wouldn't have considered things like what would it be like working moving forward, and what we were trying to achieve like 3, 5, 10 years down the line with this partner, right? So I think that's the number one, just understand what you're looking for. Like, are you looking for strategic partners to help you grow? Are you looking for the best short-term financial outcome? Are you looking for a lot of equity, so that you can, to your point, have a second bite later on? So yeah, I think that's the number one. And then, going through the process, I think it's just not being afraid to say no to things that you're not comfortable with, or, you don't think is a good fit, because, you might get a attractive offer economically from a partner that, you just don't get along with, right? And yeah, it might be easy to, accept that offer and kind of go through the process. But a lot of things could happen, it will more likely fall through before it even closes, just because you don't, like working with these people, or, you don't get along with these people. And then afterwards, if you have an earnout or equity within the business like that, that may also fall through, right? You guys don't work together well. So yeah, I think those are some initial thoughts on like things to think about. going into and through the process. And it just depends case by case, right? Because yeah, if we were just looking for an economic outcome, we would have approached it very differently and probably gone with a different outcome. But we had a good idea of what we were looking for.
Shawn, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll say is that we were really fortunate that our partners were close by. We got to go and like have dinner with them. So I think like if you are going to go through this and you are going to do something before signing anything, like try to break bread with the person. I think that was actually
Even if it means
really
getting on-
nice.
I'm sorry, you guys drove, but even if it means getting on a plane, would you encourage somebody to do that?
100%, especially because it's a big change, right? Like, and thankfully, like it was easier for us, but I think regardless, we would have flown out, or vice versa, and hopefully, like the person you're partnering up with also wants to do that. I mean, I think enthusiasm came from both sides, so that was really good. Um, and then just not being afraid to have multiple conversations, not being afraid to talk about what this looks like after. I think sometimes when you're going through like a deal, so much of the time is spent talking about the aspects of the deal and not enough is spent on like the thesis and like what it looks like, assuming, a deal actually happens. We try to spend a lot more time on that. They asked us some really good questions about like, what are our motivations for doing going through this process? What do we want to do afterwards? They were just really good, insightful questions. And, we asked them the same, why do you want to do this? Why are you guys doing this? Why us? Why not someone else? When we asked them like, hey, have you seen anyone else? Have you passed on anyone else? We got a lot of insight during the deal process into the other acquisitions that they've done. Um, you know, kind of got a feel for those teams as well. So it's important to ask the right questions because I mean, a lot of the discussion today has been about, hey, fit, everything fit. But it's like, how do you determine that fit? And it's asking, like I said, asking a lot of questions, going to dinner, kind of getting out of the office, honestly, and really understanding people for who they are. We went to go visit their office, and then we went to dinner. It was great.
Yeah, and a shout out to Zayla because she really drove a majority of the process very professionally, very successfully. Brick and Danny also because you met them. They're the three, principals really at conspiracy theory. But having a good deal partner, and Zayla was that for conspiracy theory, I think really made it effective. Also made it enjoyable going through what is, an anxious and sometimes contentious process, right? So let me end with this. You guys have both been at a young age successful, right? You've had a couple of smaller exits before. This is a meaningful one with a big future ahead of both of you. Is there anything, Shawn, that you would point to that has been impactful on your success? Whether it's a book that you read or a mentor or an experience that you went through that you can point to now and say, man, this was really helpful for me?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been really lucky to have some really good mentors and really good friends. I mean, the last company I started, my co-founder there is one of my best friends. He's in my wedding coming up, and he's just really been there for me, like along the way, and we've learned a lot. And he's made a lot of the right intros for us. Even some of the legal people and the finance people that we use outside of this deal, like came from him. So, and then he's gone through an exit, so that's helped a lot. I think the one thing that Fred and I have always tried to do a really good job of is we give a lot. Like we give a lot of our time free, with like no real actual return in sight, and we end up getting a lot back like randomly. I'd say so. I think that's good, and then we also try to just focus on the right things and surround ourselves with the right people. I think Fred and I have been really good business partners. Like sometimes I might get too emotional, and Fred's a lot more logical, and he'll be like, "Hey, take a step back, like just chill out." Um, and so, yeah, I think also having a really solid co-founder is really important because at least for Fred and I, we balance each other out really well. We're very different people, and that's actually important. Um, and we've just done a good job of just finding the right people. I mean, even earlier, I was alluding to, finding the right broker. Right, we found you; it was the right broker. I don't know if we told you this, but we actually had talked to two other brokers too, and you were the right fit for us. Finding the right attorney, right? Like that's important as well. Like it's really easy, like especially on the attorneys thing, to optimize on fees, for example, right? Like between us and everyone else that listens to podcast, David's not the cheapest. He's not the most expensive. We had cheaper options. We went David, and I would do it. I'm so glad we did because he was the best option. If anything, it probably ended up costing us less than if we went with a cheaper firm because they weren't as good and it would have taken longer and anything. Yeah. So, we've had that mentality. It's just, it does optimize for time, optimize for the right people, optimize for the right outcomes, and everything will work out. So I think
Fred,
that's really the philosophy.
Is there something you would point to, Fred, that looking back, you would say has been impactful in your success?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, to Shawn's point, I think having a good co-founder and also a co-founder that you work well with matters a lot. Like Shawn said, we're very different people. I would prefer not to, talk to everybody, but that's
or anybody.
Specialty. Or anybody. But like once we have those conversations, it opens up a lot of opportunities. I think being open to those opportunities and being open to, like that, doing things that don't have an immediate ROI, but may have an ROI in the future, matters a lot. And then, I don't know. I mean, I think things that I learned from are just like, I think understanding like the motivation for doing things. So like, why you want to build this company and grow this company matters a lot too. Because at every point in, I think, anyone's career or anyone trying to build a company, you get burned out. You're, not sure of why you want to do things. And maybe that's why you want to like do a transaction, right? Just because you're burnt out, which may not be the best motivation. So, I think just like kind of, I don't know, reflecting on like why you want to do things and why you're in this business, can help you make the best decisions and get through the hard points in your career for any career.
Well, I think, I think between the three of us and David and others that kind of contributed, it sure feels like you guys have landed at a great place with conspiracy theory for many of the reasons that we talked about on this podcast. So I'm super happy that I got to help with that. I'm excited to see where that takes you guys and where you take conspiracy theory. So you'll have to keep us posted on that. I'll say thanks for spending the time that you did, because that was generous and appreciated. I'll say thanks to our friends at TeamShares for sponsoring the podcast. And we will be sure to stay in touch with both of you guys. So thanks a bunch.
Thanks, Todd.
Appreciate it, Todd.
Thanks for listening to the Second Bite podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.